We just discussed minimum sentences for drunk drivers. They could stand to use a mandatory. How about maximum sentences for teens who kill? A 19-year-old man in Brockville, Ontario, was sentenced to this week to 7 years in prison. That's a max, folks. That's the toughest sentence you can get under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. He was 16 when he committed the crime. What did he do? He choked a woman, an 80-year-old woman, choked her to death. He'll spend 4 years of his sentence in jail with a rehab component, the other 3 under community supervision outside jail. Now, are we supposed to believe he deserves only 7 years and really only 4 for murdering a woman because he was only 16 when he strangled the 80-year-old? Did he not know that strangling could result in death? Was he too young to understand that? We're joined by former police officer and crime specialist Ross McLean in Toronto. Ross, this is the kind of thing that burns everybody's butt.
Yeah, Charles, and I'm going to tell you what I see as being the biggest problem with this is the publication bans around all this. I mean, I'm a big believer in sunshine as a great disinfectant, and the Sun does some of the best work with its court reporters on reporting what happens. But what happens in these youth courts, Charles, is there's a publication ban on it right away. And we don't know all of the circumstances. I'm going to give you a little inside baseball here for you and your viewers. What happens is when you're charged under the Youth Criminal Justice Act and you're above the age of 14, the Crown can go for an adult sentence, meaning they could have gone for it. But if the Crown doesn't file to go for the adult sentence, it all falls underneath this publication ban. So we don't know why the Crown didn't file for an adult sentence in this case. You're 16 years old, as you say, you know what strangling is. We don't have any of the background information. It can't be reported. And the key factors they say for this act is to rehabilitate kids and serve society's needs for justice. I don't think it serves society's needs for justice to have a publication ban on these issues.
Ross, I'm so glad you went for the angle of the Crown made a choice. So let's just speculate. What are the choices the Crown usually makes when they make what you and I and most of our viewers would call the wrong choice? Why do they make the choice not to take it to the next level in general?
In general, and I'm going to speculate here, this is my opinion having watched it for a period of time. What generally happens is they're measured. There's a thing called, there's a justice measurement they use where they try to measure the speed of dealing with trials, not necessarily the quality of them. So if they take everything to trial that needs to go to trial, and Lord knows if there's worthy of charging, perhaps they should be tried, they'll look for a plea. Like in this case, for instance, did they not go for the adult sentence for this particular youth because he agreed to plea if they didn't do that? And so they wouldn't have to have the trial? We don't know. We don't know.
We do know this. If it will take up much less time, less paperwork, fewer resources, there is a proclivity, a leaning toward the idea of doing it. It's called taking the path of least resistance.
Yeah, and listen, something else that really troubles me about this, they're able to say certain things like this boy who did this was a troubled youth before he did this. So what I want to know is, as a society, was this a kid who's had lots of problems, lots of run-ins with the law? Was he torturing animals? What was his background? Did someone else in either the school boards or the mental health community fail to act and take responsibility and left this poor woman who took him in as a boarder strangled and dead? We need to know this as a society. It shouldn't be secret.
Marek is the man's name. He's the 38-year-old operator of the website bestgore.com. So he knew that the tape he was getting from Magnata wasn't theater. He knew that it was a real crime. He knew that it was a real murder. He knew what this cannibal was sending him, yet he put it on the site anyway. So this week, police did the right thing. They arrested him.
Yeah, but doesn't it seem funny, the timing, how late it is from when it occurred? I was actually sort of surprised myself when it came up. I started looking at the information. Well, why are they charging now? What happened? Did they find something going through Magnata's computer, perhaps, that tied him to this, that put it in? And from what we're finding out now, it sounds like that wasn't it. The Edmonton police are doing this on their own for laying the charge. I personally think a charge should be laid if you knowingly publish a murder on the web like that. There's going to be some controversy around this because it deals, though, with freedom of the press. He's going to claim that he was doing a public good by doing that, by putting it up. He's claiming, I guess, that this helped people to identify Magnotta. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, Charles. I mean, I definitely think he should have called the police right away with what he knew and not posted it, gone with the direction of the police. But we're going to see how this plays out. It's going to be interesting.
Now, are you telling me that there are members of the public who would buy into the idea that a person who gets this kind of tape shouldn't go directly to the police, not pass go, just not collect $200, just go directly to the cop? I just can't imagine anyone I know in my life not immediately going to the police if they got their hands on something as vile as that.
Yeah, well, the police describe him as being a unique character. I think we can all read between the lines on that and what the guy's beliefs are, this and that. I think what's interesting here is what's coming up is a difference between U.S. media and Canadian media. There's different laws that govern the U.S. media than Canadian. I mean, the U.S. media have got the First Amendment. They can pretty much put on, do, or say all kinds of stuff and not necessarily be responsible for it. In Canada, you have a responsibility to be accurate in what you portray and what you're doing and what you're saying. There are more responsibilities on Canadian broadcasters. It's not as free a rein, Charles.
All right, let's talk about Mike Allen, the politician, Alberta provincial politician. He's on some sort of assignment from the government. He's part of the caucus that is the government of Alberta, the Progressive Conservatives over there. And he goes to Minnesota and decides to try to purchase some sex online and made the mistake, big mistake, a big ethical mistake, and obviously a big political mistake to purchase it from police officers who were doing a sting.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of those ones it's interesting because what it becomes is a political football, and it's very easy for political opponents or the media to jump on something and use it to magnify something. Look, this is one thing I think we need to have, and it's good things with shows like yours. People learn to get past the bumper sticker level of what's happened here and look at the nuance of what's going on. It's a crime. What level of crime? Was it with public money? Was it committing other crimes? You know, is it personal? Is it business? And I think that what needs to happen is the voters need to decide on these sort of issues because the law is pretty clear. He hasn't been charged yet, and you can't get thrown out of office, as far as I know, unless you get sent to jail for the most part in just about every political body in this country. So
yeah, he's resigned from the caucus. He probably doesn't have much future with the party. And as you know, Ross, in this country, if you're not a member of a party, you've got not much of a political future. But you're absolutely right. He doesn't have to resign office. There are people pushing him to do that. He doesn't have to do that. And he may also be charged by Canadian authorities. Now, what would the Canadian charge be for something like this?
You know, I wasn't aware. I hadn't heard that before.
He may be. I'm not saying
there may be people are talking about the sex tourism law or something, which is, I mean, off the top of my head, I think that's different. That deals with children and much more heinous offenses than this sort of hotel prostitution with escort services. It's a different level. So I'm not sure on that one, Charles.
Ross, thank you for the visit, as always, on Thursdays. Appreciate it very much.
You're welcome, Charles.
Ross McLean, crime specialist, and I love guests who just honestly look the camera in the eye, and when they don't know something, they don't try to spin. They say, you know what, Chuck, I don't have the answer to that. I'm going to have to look that up. I'm going to have to find out more, get more information, get real knowledge. Opinions with knowledge backing them. That's what we want on the program. Ross McLean in Toronto. So